Hello everyone, in this video we are going to learn how we can implement an attention check in oTree. The purpose of an attention check is to make sure that the subjects read the instructions and to filter out any subjects that didn't read the instructions to improve our data quality. And there are a couple of ways we can do this. One way that really directly just tests the attention of the subject is to implement a question somewhere where you write in the instructions text, please always answer 3 in this question, for example. And then the question asks something that is unrelated to 3, but you really want the subjects to enter 3 to check that they read the instructions. This is one way of doing an attention check. Another way, and one that I prefer, is to ask questions related to the instructions to make sure that the subjects actually understood the instructions of the experiment. And then to filter out any subjects who, even after multiple tries of reading the instructions, cannot understand the experiment. And this is what we are going to implement today. And to do this, I've already created an app here in oTree. And as you can see here, I've prepared a couple of things. So this is not an empty app. I've prepared a couple of templates. And as you can see here on the pages, Alpaya also wrote some code already. This is just to save us some time later on so that we can focus on the parts of the experiment that really are related to the attention check. And the experiment that we're going to use here is a very simple one where subjects just get 2 random numbers and they have to add them up. So now let's jump into the code. The first thing that we want to do is we want to set some constants. So first of all, we want to decide how many tries our subjects have to do the attention check. To this, I'm going to create a variable called num attention check tries. And I'm going to set this to 2. So what this means is subjects will be able to read the instructions, try the attention check, and if they fail, they will be able to read all the instructions again, and then try the attention check again. And if they fail on the second attempt, they get filtered out of the experiment and they won't be able to continue. Next thing is we need to decide how many actual game rounds we want. And usually we would just set num rounds, so the number of rounds that we want, but here we are going to do something different. We're going to create a new variable called num game rounds. And for this experiment, let me just set it to 3. And now we are going to set num round here to the number of attention check tries plus the number of game rounds minus 1. And why are we doing this? So if let's say the subject just has one attention check try, this means they read the instructions, they try the attention check once, and then they continue the game rounds. So if this would be 1, then num attention check tries plus num game rounds would be 4. But we actually only have 3 rounds because they can attempt their first game round in the same round as they attempted their last attention check. So we're going to use the minus 1 here. But with this setup where we have 2, what that means is subjects can try the attention check 2 times, and then there are still 3 actual rounds left, no matter whether they failed the attention check once or not, for them to do the actual experiment. So that's why we use this here. The next thing that I really want to do is I want to set up a variable to adjust the payment per correct answer. So I'm just going to call it payment per correct answer. And we are going to use this for our attention check later on. So one part of the attention check will be that we ask subjects how much money they make from answering the questions correctly. We can skip through the subsession and group and go to the player. And here we're going to set up some fields, which I'm just going to copy in. So the first thing that we want is this field is related to the attention check question, and the subjects will be asked how many rounds the experiment has. And then we'll have to answer this correctly. The next thing that we are going to ask them is, like I already said, they will have to answer how much they get paid per correct answer. And then we just need 2 more fields that are directly related to the experiment. So we need this number entered field here, which is the result that the subject entered, so what they think the correct answer to the addition task is. And then we are also going to store the actual correct result to the addition task. And we're going to compare these two later on to check if the subject answered correctly and gets the payment or not. So that is all that we need to set up here on the models.py. And now let's go to the pages.py. And as you can see here, I've already set up a few things that we should be familiar with. So I created a bunch of pages. I created an instructions page where we don't have anything going on here, and this will just be a short text about the experiment. I've created an attention check page with form model player and form fields, attention check rounds and attention check payments. On this page, subjects will need to answer the question about the rounds, about the instructions. And then I created a page that is shown if they did not answer the questions correctly. Also, nothing interesting happens in Python. And then we have this add numbers page. So this add numbers page, if you watched the previous videos, you should be familiar with how this looks. We just have a form field where subjects can enter a number. Here we generate two random numbers between 0 and 100. And to do this, we need to make sure that we import the random model here on the top. And then we store the correct result in this form field here that we created here. And this is just adding up the two numbers. And here with this, we return the numbers to the template. So with this, we make sure that we can use the number in the template and can display them to the subjects. So this is all very standard. And now a small thing that may be new for you is down here. We use this before next page function. Like the name says, this is run after the subject entered the result, but before the results page is loaded. And here we are just going to compare if the number that the subject has entered is the same as the correct result. And if it is the same, we set the payoff to 1. And we can actually, let's change this here to constants dot payment per correct answer, so that when we adjust this here in the constants, it actually also gets adjusted here. And then we have our results page, which is empty here in Python, so we don't need anything particular. And down here we just added all our pages to the page sequence. So right now, this is just basically an app where subjects add up numbers, and it has a couple of pages that don't do much at the moment. And now we want to actually implement the attention check functionality. To do this, we are going to define a before next page function here on the attention check page. And basically what we want to do is we want to check if the attention check was successfully passed or not. And then we want to set a variable to true or false depending on whether it was passed. And then later on each page, we can check whether the attention check was passed or not, and then decide whether we want to display this page or not. So that's our plan. And let's start with an if. So if player self.player, don't forget the self.player dot attention check rounds, if this is the same as the constants number of game rounds, so if the subject correctly entered the number of rounds of the game, and if the subject also correctly entered the payment that she will receive for each correct answer, which is stored in the constants dot payment per correct answer, then the attention check is passed, and we are going to create a new variable that is a little bit different from what we've previously done. We're going to use something that is called participant vars, which looks like this. So it's accesses via self.participant.vars, and then we do the brackets, and here we create our variable that is going to be called failed attention check. Failed attention check. And we're going to set this to false here, because if this condition is true, then the attention check was passed and not failed. So what is this? If you remember your basic Python, this looks like a dictionary, right? So if we have created a dictionary, we can add new elements to the dictionary by using the square brackets and then some sort of label. And similar, this is the same way we can also access them later on. So if you put this on the right hand side of an equal sign, then we retrieve the variable from this dictionary. And each participant in oTree has this dictionary that we can use, and whatever we put in here is just available in the experiment. It will not be stored in the database, so we can't see it in the results afterwards, but we can use it temporarily. And why we would want to use this is because, as you can see, this is participant, not player. So if you remember how multiple rounds work in oTree, each player is specific to one round. So round 1 player is different from round 2 player, but the participant is constant. So if we have a game with 10 rounds, each round will have its separate player object, but only one participant. And because the attention check here can be passed in multiple rounds, so subjects can try it and pass it in round 1, and if they don't manage it, they can pass it in round 2. It wouldn't be good to have this information whether the attention check was passed or not on the player, because then we would have to basically check all the different player objects from all the rounds where the attention check could potentially have been passed and check if any of that is true. Whereas here the participant remains constant, so if we set this once in round 1, when the subject passes the attention check in round 1, it's available in round 2, and again if they pass it in round 2, it's also fine, it's going to be available just like this. So that's why we use this participant vars here. And then we need an else. So if they don't do it correctly, then they're gonna fail the attention check. So now we have this set up, and now we need to basically create if displayed functions for all the pages to decide whether the page is displayed or not. So as a reminder, the way is displayed works is if you return true from this function, then the page is displayed. If you return false from this function, then the page is not displayed. So what we want to do here is, if the round number is 1, we want to return true here. Return true. Because in round 1, there has been no chance to do the attention check, so in round 1 everyone can see this, and we just return true. And else, if it's not round 1, else, then we just return this variable here, the failed attention check variable. So if the subject failed the attention check, that means they're supposed to read the instructions again. So if the subject failed the attention check, this is true, and we return true here. If the subject passed the attention check, like this, then this is false, so the instructions won't be shown again. This is the way that this works. And now that we have it, we can just copy it and use it again here in the attention check page, because the attention check follows the exact same logic. In round 1, everyone needs to take the attention check, and later on they only need to take it if they haven't passed it yet. So then the failed attention check page is a bit simpler. So this goes after the attention check. So here we can just do is displayed, and we just need to return this failed attention check variable. We don't need this special case for round 1, because this goes after the attention check page, so even in round 1 we already have the information whether the subject passed the attention check or not. Now we need to define is displayed here on the add numbers page. Is displayed. And here the condition that we're going to set is going to be whether the round number is equal or larger than the number of attention check tries on the constant. Okay. And now we need to make a choice on how we deal with an issue. So we want to make sure that our subjects can never see this page if they haven't completed the attention check. So one easy way to do this would be we could just add another condition that they didn't fail the attention check. So we could add and not failed attention check. That's one option. And the other option is that here on the failed attention check page, we never show them the next button if they fail the attention check twice. And if we hide the next button here, if they fail the attention check twice, then they can never move on to the next page. And for this experiment, I'm gonna go with that option. And what you want to do is, it depends a little bit on how you want your data to look like. So if you go with the option that I'm using right now, that you don't show the next button, then the subjects will never see the last round. So basically, if you later on in your data, you filter out everyone who didn't complete the experiment, this will automatically also filter out everyone who didn't pass the attention check. Alternatively, you might want to use the other option, where you add this condition that they didn't fail the attention check, and then you let them move on to the next round. If you do this, you need to make sure everywhere here that the attention check is never displayed again in rounds larger than the number of tries. So you would need to add some other conditions here to make it sure that they have only the number of tries that they're supposed to have. And then you just make sure that if they fail the attention check, and then basically nothing gets displayed anymore. The attention check and instructions does not get displayed because they have exceeded the number of tries, and everything below here doesn't get displayed because it's only displayed to subject who passed the attention check. So then they will basically immediately after failing the attention check twice be moved to the last round and the last page and complete the experiment that way. And this is something that you might want to do if, for example, you use mturk and you need to kind of redirect subjects back to mturk at the end or something like that. So those are the two options. I just wanted to mention these other options now, but we are going to stick with the simpler one for this experiment. And that means that this condition here is sufficient because subjects who did not pass the attention check will never reach this page in a round that is larger than the number of attention check twice. So they will get stuck here because they won't have a next button. So now we just need to add this condition to the results page as well. So again, they're only supposed to see the results, of course, if they also saw this page. And then we are done in the pages.py, and we can move on to the template files. So let's go through the template files step by step, starting with the instructions. The instructions, as you can see, I already filled this out. It's really just a simple instruction where we tell them the number of rounds and the number of the money that they get per correct answer, which is also what we ask them later on in the attention check. Then the next thing is the attention check itself. This again is just a very standard page. We tell them that they need to answer these questions correctly and just put the form fields here, and this will show these two questions that we set up here. So again, very standard stuff. And now comes the page that is a bit interesting, the failed attention check page. So here we are gonna distinguish between the case where the subject has another try or not. So on this page, the subjects only end up here when they failed the attention check. And if they failed the attention check, but they have on a round lower than the number of tries that they have, that means they have at least one try left in the next round. Just tell them they didn't answer the question correctly, that they need to read the instructions again, and then how many tries they have, and we give them the next button. So subject will see this, click next, and then they will basically start again with the instructions page. However, if this is not true, this means they are in round 2 in our case, so they are in the round with the same number as the number of attention check tries, then they have used up all their tries. And here we just display them that they didn't answer the question correctly for 2 times in our case. They cannot continue, and they're supposed to close the experiment now. And they don't have a next button, so they will get stuck on this page, and we successfully filtered them out of the experiment. Okay, now this was kind of the interesting part, and now let's quickly check the other pages. So the add numbers page, very simple. We just display the 2 numbers that we generated, and we returned them here in our VAS4 template. And then we also render the form field with the question, and that's it. And on the results page, we just display them their payoff. So that's all we want to do. And now we can open our browser and test the experiment. Okay, let's create a demo session, and I made it with 3 participants to test 3 different cases, how we can go through the experiment. In the first case, we failed the attention check twice, so let me just enter some random numbers here. And as you can see, we end up on this page where it says that we didn't answer the question correctly 2 times and we can't continue with the experiment. Now, the second case, let's make the mistake in the first try. We end up on the page that tells us that we have 2 attempts in total. And now we read the instructions again. And now let's give the correct answer. And we move on to the main task, and we can enter a number now. So, I seem to have made a mistake. My payoff was 0 points. Let's get it right now to see that the payoff actually works. So the payoff was 1. This works. And finally, let's get it right on the first try. And we immediately end up at the page where we add up the numbers. So everything worked correctly. Before we wrap up this video, I have a quick announcement to make. I made an oTree course on Udemy. It includes all the videos on this channel and 6 additional videos by the time I'm recording this. I already have ideas for more than 5 new videos, and I plan to release about half of them for free here on YouTube, while the other half will be Udemy exclusive. So stay tuned for more videos on this channel, and consider enrolling in my course if you want to support me and get access to more oTree tutorials. If you're interested, I made a separate video in which I talk more about the course, and you can find a link to this in the video description. For the first months after the release of this video, you will also find a discount link for the course there. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one.